Hello everyone, welcome back to my fluency journey. And this live session is about reading new books and exploring the good ideas and how to implement that in our life, and also learn some new vocabularies and how to become more fluent in English and how to articulate your words properly, right? So yeah, and today we are on chapter 7 of The Subtle Art of Not Giving Fuck, and the title of the chapter is Failure is the Way Forward. Okay, we need to experience, I think the main point is we need to experience failure. Yeah. Okay, so let's begin, right. I i really mean it when I say it. I was fortunate. i graduated college I graduated college I graduated college I graduated college in 2007, just in time for the financial collapse and great recession, and attempted to enter the worst job market in more than 80 years. Around the same time, I found out that the person who was subletting one of the rooms in my apartment hadn't paid any rent for 3 months. When confronted about this, she cried and then disappeared, leaving my other roommate and me to over everything. Goodbye, goodbye savings. I spent the next 6 months living on a friend's couch, stringing together odd jobs and trying to stay in as little debt as possible while looking for a real job. I say I was fortunate because I entered that world already a failure. I started out at rock bottom. That's basically everybody's biggest fear later on in life. When confronted with starting a new business or changing careers or quitting an awful job, and I got to experience it right out of the gates. Things could only get better. Yeah, miss what worst will happen, because the worst is already being happened to me, right? So it's, the next thing will be much better than that. So yeah, lucky. When you are sleeping on a smelly futon and have to count coins to figure out whether you can afford McDonald's this week, and you send out 20 resumes without hearing a single word talk. Then starting a blog and stupid internet business will sound like such a scary idea. If every project I started failed, if every post I wrote dread, I only be back exactly where I started. So why not try? Yeah, that's the good job. Futon. Today is 3rd August. Today is 5th August. Futon. Okay. First noun. Okay. A Japanese style bedding consisting of a thin mattress that can lay directly on the floor or sleeping and fully stored away during the day. Japan. Okay, got it. So that's like uh, failure itself is a relative concept. If my matter had been to become an anarcho-communist revolutionary, then my complete failure to make any 2007 and 2009 would have been a raving success. Raving, raving success. Summoning of raving. Photon means smelly bad, or like the card that can be completely transformed into, okay, completely packed into a completely directly on the floor and completely folded and stored during the day. Okay, raving success is wildly enthusiastic or wild irrational. Okay, what if simply find a first serious job that could pay some bills right out of school, and I was a decimal failure. I grew up in a wealthy family. Money was never a problem. On the contrary, I grew up in a wealthy family where money was more often used to avoid problems than solve them. I was again unfortunate because this taught me at an early stage that making money by itself was a lousy metric for myself, lousy, lousy. Focus that. You could make plenty of money and be miserable, just as you could be broke and be pretty happy. Therefore, I use money as a means to measure my self worth. Lousy is terrible, awful. Okay. Instead, my value was something else. It was freedom, autonomy. The idea of being an entrepreneur had always appealed to me because I hated being told what to do. I prefer to do things my way. The idea of working on the internet appealed to me because I could do it from anywhere and whenever I wanted. I asked myself a simple question: would I rather make decent money and work a job I hated, or play an internet entrepreneur and be broke for a while? The answer was immediate and clear for me. The latter, I then asked myself, if I try this thing and fail and furious, I have to go to have to go get a job anyway. Well, I have really lost anything. The answer was no. Instead of a broke and unemployed 22-year-old with no experience, I'd be broke and unemployed 25-year-old with no experience. Who cares? With this value, do not pursue my own project becomes the failure and not a lack of money, not sleeping on friends and family's couches, which I continue to do for most of next 2 years and not an empty resume. The failure success paradox. When Pablo Picasso was in oil when he was sitting in a cafe in Spain, doodling on an used napkin, he was nonchalant about the whole thing. Okay, unconcerned, calm. Okay, unconcerned about the whole thing, trying whatever amused him in that moment. Kind of the same way teenage boys drew penises on bathroom stalls, except this was Picasso, so his bathroom stall penises were more like Cubist, impressionist, awesomeness, lays on top of faint coffee stains. Anyway, some woman sitting near him was looking on him. Oh, after a few moments, Picasso finished his coffee and crumpled up the napkin to throw away as he left. The woman stopped and wet. She said, "Can I have that napkin? You were just drawing on. I will pay for it. I will pay you for it." Sure, Picasso replied, $20,000. Jolted back as if he had just flung a brick at her. What? It took you like 2 minutes to draw that. It took me over 60 years to draw this. He stuffed the napkin in his pocket and walked out of the cafe. Jolted back. So suddenly and sharply brought back to particular physical mental state. Is tough. Okay, improvement in anything is based on thousands of tiny failures, and magnitude of your success based on how many times you failed at something. If someone is better than you at something, then it's likely because she has failed it more than you have. If someone is worse than you, it's likely because he hasn't been through all the painful learning experiences you have. Oh, that's a deep message. That's really great. If you think about a young child trying to learn to walk, that child will fall down and hurt itself hundreds of times, but at no point does that child ever stop and think, oh, I guess walking just isn't for me or I'm not good at it. Avoiding failure is something we learned at some later point in life. I'm sure a lot of it comes from our education system, which is rigorously based on performance and punishes those who don't do well. Another large share of it comes from overbearing or critical parents who don't let their kids screw up on their own often enough. Instead, punish them for trying anything new or not preordained. Preordained. Preordained's universal, right? Something little know universal, predestined, inevitable. Okay, unstoppable things. And then we have all the mass media that constantly exposes to stellar success after success. while not showing us a thousand of hours of dull practice and training that were required to achieve that success. Stiller and Tradium. Okay, related to star, excellent, outstanding performance. Oh my god, toward a monetary dullness. At some point, most of us reach a place where we are afraid to fail, where we instinctively avoid failure and stick only to what is placed in front of us, or only what we have already good at. This confines us and stifles us. We can be truly successful only at something we are willing to fail at. If we are unwilling to fail, then we are unwilling to succeed. That's nice, right? For instance, if I measure myself by the standard, okay, a lot of this fear of failure comes from having chosen shitty values. For instance, if I measure myself by the standard, make everyone I meet like me, I will be anxious because failure is 100% defined by the actions of others, not by our own actions. I am not in control, thus my self-worth is at the mercy of judgments by others. Whereas if I instead adopt the metric, improve my social life, I can live up to my value of good relations with others, regardless of how other people respond to me. My self-worth is based on my own behaviors and happiness. Shitty values, as we saw in chapter 4, involve tangible external goals outside of our control. Pursuit of these goals cause great anxieties. This is also a good metric. Okay, our own behaviors and happiness. Okay, the pursuit of people causes greater anxiety, and even if we manage to achieve them, they leave us feeling empty and lifeless. Because once they are achieved, there are no more problems to solve. Better values, as we saw, are process oriented, something like express myself honestly to others. A metric for the value honesty and is never completely finished. It's a problem that must continuously be very engaged, every new conversation, every new relationships bring new challenges and opportunities for honest expression. The value is an ongoing, lifelong process that defines completions, that defies completions. Okay, so need to create good, need to create better habits. I need to create better, better and good values, which which are okay. What's the word that is never ending? Which are never ending. Okay. If your metric for the value success by worldly standards is buy a house and a nice car, and you spend 20 years working your ass off to achieve it. Once it's achieved, the metric has nothing left to give you. Then shake into your midlife crisis because the problem that drove you your entire adult life was just taken away from you. There are no other opportunities to keep growing and growing, and yet it's growth that generate happiness, not a long list of arbitrary achievements. In this sense, goals as they are conventionally defined, graduate from college by lake house, lose 15 pounds, unlimited in the amount of happiness they can produce in their life. They may be helpful when pursuing quick, short-term benefits, but are guides for overall trajectory of our life. Picasso prolific his remained prolific his entire life, lived into his 90s and continued to produce art up until his finite years. Prolific, prolific. It's an adjective, right? Prolific means productive and creative. Okay. Live into his 90s and continued to produce art up until his final years. Had his mentor been become famous or make a buttload of money in the art world, or paint 1000 pictures, he would have stagnated at some point along the way. Stagnated or stagnated. Okay, stall, decline, slow down, deteriorated. He he would have deteriorated or slowed down at some point along the way. He would have been overcome by anxiety or self-doubt. He likely wouldn't have improved or innovated his craft in the ways he did. Decade after decade. Okay, the reason for Picasso's success is exactly the same way. Why? As an old man, he was able to scribble drawings on a napkin alone in a cafe. His underlying value was simple and humble, and it was endless. It was a very honest expression, and this was made that napkin so valuable. Pain is the part of the process. In 1950s, a Polish psychologist named Kazimierz Dabrowski studied World War II survivors and how they coped with traumatic experiences in the war. Okay, in the war, this was Poland, so things had been pretty gruesome. Gruesome means boring or it's dirty, right? I think so. Horrific, yeah. Frightening. Okay, these people had experienced or witnessed mass starvation, bombing that turned cities to rubble, the Holocaust, the torture of prisoners of war, and the rape and or murder of family members, and if not by Nazis, then a few years later by Soviets. As Dabrowski studied the survivors, he noticed something both surprising and amazing. A sizable percentage of them believed that the wartime experience they had suffered, although painful and indeed traumatic, had actually caused them to become better, more responsible, and yes, even happier people. Many described their lives before the war as if they had been different people than ungrateful for and unappreciative for their loved ones, lazy and consumed by petty problems, entitled to all they had been given. After the war, they felt more confident, more sure of themselves, more grateful, and unfazed by life's trivialities and petty annoyances. Obviously, the experiences had been horrific, and the survivors weren't happy about having had to experience them. Many of them still suffer from the emotional scars that the lashings of war had left on them, but some of them had managed to leverage those scars to transform themselves in positive and powerful ways. And they aren't alone in that reversal. For many of us, our proudest achievements come in the face of the greatest adversity. Our pain often makes us stronger, more resilient, more grounded. Many cancer survivors, for example, report feeling stronger and more grateful after winning their battle to survive. Many military emotional report mental resilience gained from withstanding withstanding the dangerous environments of being in a war. Mental resilience. Resilience means ability to cure quickly. Resilience. Resilience. No, I think that is okay. Mental resilience means toughness, strength. Or here to recover quickly from difficult situations, adapt well to adversity. Hidden the pain, okay, for withstanding the dangerous environments of being in a war zone. Dabrowski argued that fear and anxiety and sadness are not necessarily always undesirable or unhelpful states of life. Rather, they are often representative of the necessary pain of psychological growth, and to deny pain is to deny our own potential. Just as one must suffer physical pain to build stronger bone and resilience, one must suffer emotional pain to develop greater emotional resilience and stronger sense of self, increased compassion, and generally happier life. Oh, that's deep, right? Really deep. Oh, that means pain is the part of the process. Our most radical changes in perspective often happens at the tail end of our worst moments. It's only when we feel intense pain that we are willing to look at our values and reason why they seem to be failing us. We need some sort of existential crisis to take an over objective look at how we have been deriving meanings in our life and then consider changing course. You could call it hitting bottom or having an existential crisis. I prefer to call it weathering the storm. Choose what suits you. And perhaps you are in that kind of place right now. Perhaps you are coming out of the most significant challenge of your life and are bewildered because everything you previously thought to be true and normal and good has turned out to be opposite. That's good. That's the beginning. I can't stress this enough, but pain is the part of process. It's important to feel it because if you just chase after highs to cover up the pain, if you continue to indulge in entitlement and delusive positive thinking, if you continue to overindulge in various substances or activities, then you will never generate the requisite motivation to actually change. And that's important because you just chase. That's important. One most radical change in perspective often happens at the tail end of our first moments. We intense pain that we are willing to look at our values and feeling less. And we need some sort of examination lessons to look at our objective and deriving meaning from life. And perhaps that's good. A positive and perhaps I don't know because okay when I was young and my uh, when I was young anytime my family got a new VCR or stereo I would press every button, plug and unplug every code and cable just to see what everything did. By the time I learned how the whole system worked, and because I knew how it all worked, I was often the only person in the house who used the stuff. As in the case of many millennial children, millennials, my parents looked upon it as if I was some sort of prodigy. To them, the fact that I could program the PCR without looking at the instruction manual had to be the second coming of the Tesla. It's easy to look back at my parents' generation and chuckle at their technophobia. chuckle. Chuckle means giving some random smile. You are chuckling. Means to life quietly or softly, especially in low gentle way. Okay, but the further I get into adulthood, the more I realize that we all have areas of our lives where we likely, like my parents with the new VCR, we sit and stare, and shake our heads and say, "But how?" Really, it's simple as just doing it. I I get emails. I get emails from people asking questions like this all the time, and for many years I never knew that what to say to them. There is the girl whose parents are immigrants and saved for their whole lives to put her through med school, but now she is in med school and she hates it. She doesn't want to spend her life as a doctor, so she wants to more than anything. Yet she feels so stuck. In fact, that she ends up emailing a stranger on the internet silly and obvious questions like how do I drop out of med school or or the college guy who had a crush on his tutor so he agonizes over every sign agonizes Chico agonizes yes she who suffered intense mental emotional pain and she what uh, so he agonizes over every sign every laugh every smile every diverse into small talk and emails me a 28-page novella that continues with the question, how do I ask her out? But the single mother who is nowadays kids have finished school and are loafing around on her couch, eating her food, spending her money, not respecting her space or desire for privacy. She wants them to move their life. She wants to move on with her life. Yet she's scared to death of punishing. Scared to death of punishing her children away. Scared to the point of asking, how do I ask them to move out? Okay, that was the loafing. Loafing. There are many words I didn't know, but right. Loafing means spending time lazily. Okay. Goofing off, slacking. These are VCR questions from the outside. The answer is simple. Just shut up and do it. But from the inside, from the perspective of each of these people, these questions feel impossibly complex and opaque. Existential riddles rather enigmas packed in KFC bucket full of Rubik's cubes. VCR questions are funny because the answer appears difficult to anyone who has them and appears easy to anyone who does not. The problem here is pain. Filling out the appropriate paperwork to drop out of mid school is a straightforward and obvious action. Breaking your parents' heart is not. Asking a tutor out on a date is as simple as saying the words. Risking intense embarrassment and rejection feels far more complicated. Asking someone to move out of your house is a clear decision. Feeling as if you are abandoning your own children is not. I struggle with social anxiety throughout much of my adolescence. I struggled with social anxiety throughout much of my adolescence and young adult life. I spent most of my days distracting myself with video games, and most of my nights either drinking or smoking away my uneasiness. For many years, the thought of speaking to a stranger, especially if that stranger happened to be particularly attractive, interesting, popular, smart, felt impossible to me. I walked around in the days for years, asking myself dumb VCI questions. How? How do we just walk up and talk to a person? How can somebody do that? I had all sort of screwed up beliefs about this, like that you weren't allowed to speak to someone unless you had some practical reason to, or that women would think I was creepy rapist if I so much as said hello. The problem was that my emotions defined my reality because it felt like people didn't want to talk to me. I came to believe that people didn't want to talk to me, and this my VCR questions: how do you just walk up and how you just walk up and talk to me, talk to a person? Because I failed to separate what I felt from what was. I was incapable of stepping outside myself and seeing the world for what it was. A simple place where two people can compare to each other at any time and speak. Many people, when they feel some form of pain or anger, sadness, drop everything and into numbing out whatever they are feeling. Their goal is to get back to feeling good again as quickly as possible, even if that means substance to or deluding themselves or returning to their shitty values. Learn to sustain the pain you have chosen. When you choose a new value, you are choosing to introduce a new form of pain into your life. Relish it, savor it, welcome it with open arms, then act despite it. They are very okay. So relish, savor, despite. Relish, savor, despite. Okay. Here are the meanings. Relish means to enjoy something. Enjoy it. Deposit. Okay, that's not deposit, bro. Savor. Think now I should have to go to. Okay, it's almost 40 minutes. Right. Oh, just 29 minutes. I don't know. Okay. I already have. Right. Savor it means fully enjoy or appreciate something. Savor it. This moment won't come again. Relish it. Okay. And despite it. Despite it. Then act despite it. Without it. Okay. Despite means without it, right? So even though something happened or in spite of something, yet the result of action still occurred. Despite it, she continued to in spite of that. Nevertheless, however, okay, then that. I won't lie, this is going to feel impossibly hard at first, but you can start simple. You are going to feel as though you don't know what to do, but we have discussed this. You don't know anything. Even when you think you do, you really don't know what the fuck you are doing. So really, what is there to lose? Life is about life is about not knowing and then doing something anyway. All of life is like this. It never changes. Even when you are happy, even when you are farting fairy dust, even when you win the lottery and buy a small fleet of jet skis, you still want to know what the hell you are doing. Don't ever forget that. You don't ever be afraid of that. You do something principle. Okay, so we'll start from that topic on next video, on next live session, right? And the goal is to get back to feeling good again as quickly as possible, even if that means substance of including themselves telling us to take your choosing. Control C. Okay, that's it. So yeah, it's not 1 hour reading session, but yeah, that's half an hour reading session.